Fest, the Global Fintech Fest. This event is organized by Fintech Convergence Council and Payments Council of India of Internet and Mobile Association of India. The fest is presented by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India and Reserve Bank of India, and supported by Niti Aayog, Startup India and Invest India. Well, before we move forward, we'd also like to take the opportunity to thank all of our partners for their fantastic support. Our platinum partner, Visa, AWS, and PhonePe, diamond partner, Cred, country partner, Australian government, track partner, HSBC India, track partner, Refinitiv India, and of course our session partner, the UK government, Department for International Trade. A warm welcome again to all the delegates who have just joined us in for the session and all those who are with us since morning as well. It's time for a very interesting fireside chat, especially around the topic when we're talking about Indian payments and the big question, where is the money? Now, it's time to also grab the answers from two of our stalwart speakers. In fact, one of them has played a key role in expanding the internet ecosystem in the region and increasing adoption amongst the consumers and businesses and accelerating innovation. We have with us Mr. Rajan Anandan, Managing Director, Sequoia Capital. And we're also joined by someone who's played a pivotal role in designing, building, operationalization, and management of large-scale innovative payments processing platforms such as UPI, Bheem, as well as India's homegrown card network, RuPay. We have with us Mr. Dilip Asbe, Managing Director and CEO, National Payments Corporation of India. Now, before we get to deep dive into this discussion, I'm going to request all our delegates to please wholeheartedly participate by sharing your questions on the right side of the screen. We have the active Q&A box on the right side, so please go ahead and share your questions, and our speakers will be more than delighted to have them answered towards the end of the session. So with that, let's go ahead and deep dive into the session. Over to you, gentlemen.
Great. Thank you. Hi, everyone. This is Rajan here. I'm thrilled to be here with Dilip, who's the CEO and Managing Director of National Payments Corporation of India. Dilip, wonderful to have you. So everyone, what we're going to do is sort of do this in a very informal way. I have a set of questions. And by the way, thank you to many of you who WhatsApped me, sent me DMs on Twitter saying, hey, here's a question I'd like you to ask Dilip. So hopefully we'll get to those questions. And then Dilip also wanted to ask me some questions, so we'll have that. But to the extent any of you have questions, please put them in the Q&A tab, as the moderator just mentioned, and we'll try to take some of them as well. All right, so as all of you know, India went from really not having a digital payments ecosystem 4 or 5 years ago to today. I think we could certainly say, Dilip, you'll have to share your thoughts with us. India today has the most advanced digital payments ecosystem in the world, right? And a huge part of the credit really goes to UPI, right? So Dilip, I think to you and your team on behalf of the entire fintech ecosystem in India, but really the entire startup ecosystem in India, I wanted to thank you for the amazing work that you have been doing. And by the way, I don't know how many of you know this, but Dilip actually has been at NPCI since 2010. He joined as the CTO of NPCI. Then in 2013 became the Chief Operating Officer of NPCI, and since 2018 January has been the CEO. So for those of you that think you can actually sort of convince Dilip that something can or cannot be done with payments technology, well, we have news for you. You won't be able to get that past him. So what I'm going to do is start off, Dilip. Dilip, talk a little bit about what is the state of digital payments in India today.
So. Thanks, Rajan, and thanks to the GFF that we can have this conversation today. And see, today, when you look at the RBI launched a digital payment index, and it virtually tripled from the baseline 3 years back. So we can definitely say that there is a huge progress which is happening. When you look at the last year's total digital payment transactions, we did about 55 billion overall, all payment systems put together, and this year we might be above 70. We did UPI about 22 billion last year. We are going to do about 40 this year, 42 this year.
42 billion what, Dilip?
42 billion in numbers, volume.
Transaction
volume.
Okay.
And we are looking at the value. We believe that, value of UPI transactions will be well over $1 trillion, in that sense, on an annual basis. So So in that sense, I think it's a great going, Rajan. Obviously you have been ahead of Google, so you know how much monthly active users Google look at. But I think we are looking at about 300 million active users on a monthly basis on the digital payment ecosystem, all payment system put together. UPI might be around 200. We are seeing the good number of merchants accepting the digital payments, including the small merchants, which is well over 50 million numbers, so which is a very, very healthy sign for the digital payment ecosystem. However, I still believe there is a 10x growth possible, and the reason why I believe so, because cash in circulation is still 30 lakh crore, right? In that sense, approximately 30 lakh crore. And while it has been increasing constantly and the digital payment also increasing, a lot of people ask that why the cash is still high. And with the government, the Jan Dhan Yojana, and the whole direct benefit transfer program coming back to the formal economy, obviously people are using the formal economy to withdraw the cash and use the banking cash. So we see the cash in circulation also going up. But I still believe there is a 10x growth for us, for a country like us. We should process about 50 billion transactions on a monthly basis. Daily billion a day is our dream in next 2 years to 3 years time. So I still believe that lot of things to be done. We have just started, in my assessment, Rajan.
That's great. That's great, Dilip. I think so. So just to summarize, right? I think just in a few years, we've got over 300 million Indians, unique Indians every month that are using a digital payments instrument. We think about 200 million now on UPI. The others are on others, including wallets, etc. Over 50 million small businesses now are accepting payments on digital payments. I think largely UPI. And you're saying this year we're on track to exceed over $1 trillion of total value on UPI payments. And those are phenomenal numbers, Dilip. And it's great to see that, hear from you that we're going to 10x from here. By when do you think, I'm sure your internal planning sessions, Dilip, you guys talk about this $1 billion a day. By when do you think we'll get to $1 billion a day?
See, definitely if we just maintain a status quo, we'll get it in 5 years, in my assessment. But I think there is a chance, because, and the reason which I believe is we have a very aggressive and innovative government and the regulator who's kind of keen interest in growing digital payment at scale. So I believe that, we should, as a country, should aspire in 3 years from now to get $1 billion a day. And Rajan, to be honest, the demon and the COVID both have actually kind of accelerated this speed, right? And we as a country must leverage this. We should not slow down. We should be, as a country, the payment ecosystem must continue to innovate and double up the efforts, in my assessment, to get it in 3 years instead of 5 years or 6 years as a routine, with the current growth rate.
So there you go. You heard it right here from Dilip Asbe, right? We're going to get to 1 billion transactions a day on UPI 3 years from now. So September 29th, 2024, right? 22, 23, 24. There you go, Dilip. I think that's a great, at Surge, we talk about OKRs, objectives and key results, Dilip. Yes. And I think it's a great OKR for NPCI, but also the entire fintech ecosystem. So Dilip, let's talk a little bit about this 10x growth. I'd love for you to talk about two things. Maybe first you can talk about what's coming down the road for UPI. You've launched a bunch of new exciting products on UPI. Maybe you can talk about that. And then I'd like to move to broader fintech, right? So account aggregator and a bunch of the other things. But maybe you can start with, what are some of the new exciting things that have already been announced? Why are they significant? And then to the extent you can share, what else can we expect over the next, let's say, 6-12 months from UPI that will help us accelerate this journey we are on?
So today, there are a couple of initiatives which we are driving as far as UPI is concerned. One is the recurring payments. The regulator issued the guidelines about a year back on recurring payments, and making recurring payments as safe and secure as with the two-factor authentication first time, and creating that mandate and giving the power to the consumer today to look at the mandate, cancel it, add, change it. So we have kind of built this very beautifully back on UPI, and in fact we call it a layer of autopay. And in fact, 3 of NPCI's own system competing for the share in that sense. So 3 or 4. So we have autopay layer on UPI, we have autopay layer on RuPay, and we have autopay layer on NACH as well, right? And if you look at the numbers, and we have an auto pay layer now on BBPS as well, Bharat Bill Payment System. So all these 4 payment systems will compete with each other to kind of get the mandate share in the market. And
which one do you think will win, Dilip?
That we are not really worried. Let the best product win. That's what is our.
That's like asking you which of your children might be the most successful. I mean, that's
in fact, and it need not be NPCI's children at all. I'm saying that let the country win. That's what is our objective.
That's right. Let the user win. The consumer.
Let the user win. Absolutely. And I was having the similar conversation with Reed Hastings. He was in town about a week back, and we said, Netflix has to take take a lead in popularizing the auto pay or mandates in that sense. And if you look at the numbers, Rajan, the numbers are very encouraging. We have reached about a 2 million number on UPI auto pay.
Already, 2 million Indians are using auto pay.
2 million new mandates are getting registered every month.
So, every month?
Oh, every month. And NACH is also about 2 million. So our and RuPay and BBPS are just going to start in a next month or so. So we are hoping that, and this is the target, our internal target, obviously, and, my business development guys will be really upset, but we want to exit the financial year by 25 million new mandates every month, with a run rate of 25 million new mandates every month. And I think it's a very exciting space. And I strongly believe that the regulator really thinks long-term, Rajan. And, today, and they fully understand that, and yesterday also Deputy Governor was speaking, how do we as stakeholders look at the long-term gains instead of the short-term gains and build up the solid story, which is more protecting consumer, creating the consumer trust. And then there is no looking back, in terms of scale. We have seen it on UPI. We have seen it on DBT, APS. We have seen it on many other products of NPCI, like, toll collection. We don't even enough speak about it. But 95% of the toll which is collected now, Rajan, is collected on the national highways, is on electronic, right? They were
95%, huh?
95%. They were averaging about 60 crore average daily collections about a couple of years back. Now that average daily collection is reaching 100 crore. So I'm saying that the country has such a great potential, and obviously now there's so many things to be done, right? And even on toll collection, we want to get parking, we want to get state highways. So I think there is enough on a plate as far as NPCI is concerned.
That's great. Actually, before we talk about, I want to get your thoughts on things like account aggregator and some of the exciting new things that are happening. But before we get to that, I see that a question has already come, which is the title of our session: where is the money in payments? So maybe Dilip, obviously the government, took MDR down to zero because they wanted to encourage the adoption of digital payments. Would we see MDR now that, we have 300 million Indians that are using digital payments? Any thoughts on, what might happen to MDRs? Because without MDRs, as you know, today, Dilip, all the payments companies, including NPCI, are in investment mode. The only thing about a business, as you know, is eventually, there has to be money. So obviously, today payments companies are trying to figure out how to make money from lending and many other sources. But it'd be great to get any thoughts you might be able to share on MDRs, the situation, the MDR situation in the country.
No, I think, Rajan, this is a very valid question from the ecosystem, and we strongly believe that there has to be reasonable MDR, reasonable charges. Reasonableness is required because as the volumes are growing, we must, as an ecosystem, set up a path that how are we trying to make it more cost efficient back for the ecosystem in that sense. And, while the government took a call with a very novel intent because COVID had, the demon had happened, and, the government has been trying to work with the regulator, work with the ecosystem to reduce the charges back for the merchant so that the small merchant comes in. The government whole objective was to how do we get the small merchants inside, with the small traders, the panwalas, they start accepting digital payments without much of a worrying that, what are the charges we are going to spend. So I think there is obviously there is a positive impact of, making the MDR zero. However, we have been in the constant conversation with the government, whether it's a Ministry of Finance, Ministry of IT, the Cabinet Secretary, or we have been in constant conversation with everybody that we need some reasonable charge, and thankfully Honorary FM in her budget announced some incentives, and we have been trying to work with. In fact, about a couple of weeks back, I I met the IT minister as well, and requested that that digital payment incentive, if that comes earlier, that kind of gives some breather or a stopgap arrangement in that sense to get some incentives back on providing the service. Because see, and we spoke about this 10x growth, right? How this 10x growth is going to come. So somebody has to invest back on the user onboarding, user education, customer protection. The merchant side, the acceptance has to go from 50 million active merchants to 100 million active merchants, right? So and everybody in that supply chain has to make money, right? At least to fund their the IT investments. The banks have to create a scalable CBS platform to process this large number of UPI transactions. So obviously I can't share much about it, but Rajan, we are hoping that government will announce very, very soon. That's what we are.
That would be great, Dilip. I think getting some MDR back, or at least in some form, right? Some value capture back into the payments ecosystem directly. I mean, obviously, all the payments companies are trying to figure out how to make money in many different ways. Actually, just coming to that, Dilip, talk a little bit about what's your thoughts on what's happening with account aggregator. And all the way, and all the other exciting things that are happening that are going to, in many ways, unlock lending in India, and how you see that, how you think digital payments companies can leverage a lot of what is coming down the road.
See, Mr. Nilekani spoke in 2017 in one of his conference at Kalari Capital, spoke about WhatsApp moment in payments. He spoke about that. And 2021 we are really seeing that moment, right? Because we are seeing the active users near 200 million, and most of the places now the UPI is even in the country stacks. In the morning, Mr. Arish Sharma was talking, and he has named the health stack as a unified health interface, right?
That's right.
So we are seeing this. People are adopting the UPI model and in most of the national scale initiatives, and if you look at it, and three things which we are talking about, right? One is the way interoperability what UPI provided, a completely open platform. The second thing is the whole UPI tried to create this unbundling of the services so that the variety of players can come together and collaborate. If you look at India, is the only place where we have got the great partnerships back between the banks and fintechs in that sense, and
that's right.
And it's a win-win partnerships, right? Because the bank continues to keep the accounts, savings, the interest and data, and leverage that to offer services back to the customers, while the fintechs are able to play on the front end side. We have been trying to work with the banks also to open up their mobile banking on UPI, but we'll see that in very soon. But I think when you look at this large initiatives like or we spoke about the open network for digital commerce, we spoke about the OKN, which is the credit network. So I think the data, Rajan, what has been created by the payment systems, right, is going to be very, very vital in this whole process, right? Because that is where you have seen the customer behavior, you have seen the consistency, you have seen his patterns. And if the startups, fintechs are able to deploy the technology very well using the big data, AI, ML, I think the giving the credit is going to be very, very simple and very, very appropriate in that sense. I won't say profitable, but I'm saying appropriate in that sense. And I believe that the next wave is going to be the credit and BNPL. That's the way I look at it, Rajan. And it is going to be all leveraging the payments rail in that sense. So I would not be really surprised, and I think Mr. Sharma spoke about today, that most of the initiatives, right, whether it's a AA, whether it's a ONDC, whether it's a OKN or health stack, they are going to use the payment as a layer, like a cashless layer, and Aadhaar as an identity layer in a big way, right? Because these two will become like a founding stones to create this next level of India stack, if I may say so, and I believe it's going to be very, very encouraging, very exciting times, Rajan. I think we must thank God that we are working in these times and I think we see 10x growth. So you can imagine there is never a dull moment in our life in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, one more question, Dilip, and then I know you wanted to ask.
I wanted to ask you some questions.
Let's just take this one question on credit on UPI. Why has UPI OD been paused? Isn't this critical to drive small short recurring credit to NTC segments to drive financial inclusion. Maybe you could take that one.
Yeah, I can take that one. In fact, the OD, I will tell you, Rajan, the OD, what happens is the way product is structured, that, the interest charges from day zero, right? While we launch this OD, assuming that, the banks will be able to offer this freely back to the customers, but this day zero interest, see, today the customer or the youngsters are looking some interest-free period, and that's where I think we have not really deployed the product which market is looking at. And I think there is a merit in that, the question which we have looked at, and thanks Badal Malik to ask this question, and we'll pursue the idea of credit, and we'll start the dialogue with the ecosystem and the regulator.
Got it. Terrific. Maybe Dilip, we can switch gears. I know you wanted to ask me one or two questions.
I wanted to ask you, Rajan, that we are living in the best times as far as the fintechs are concerned. The valuations, the race to IPO. How do you see this whole thing? I'm saying, what do you think the next 2 years looks like for the fintechs, valuations, investments, and from your wearing your Sequoia hat?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Dilip. So first and foremost, it's important to keep in mind, right? Today, if you look at global venture capital dollars that are going into global startups, right? By far, the segment where the most amount of capital is going, if you just take a percentage globally and then you can cut it, whether it's in the US or whether it's in India or any other market, actually fintech is sort of where a lot of, most, on a percentage basis, the largest amount of capital is going, right? And we think this trend is going to continue. In fact, you just pointed out why, right? If you just take payments and you say, look, payments is going to 10x from here, right? We're already at $1 trillion. You're saying over the next several years, we're going to 10x this from here. In many ways, although despite all the progress that we've made, we're still in the early days, right? Digital lending has barely started. BNPL is just starting, right? And even in payments, as you said, we have 300 million Indians who are using digital payments. India has about 600 million internet users. The 600 million internet users will go to 1 billion by 2025, right? So by 2025, which is only 4 years away, Dilip, we will have 1 billion connected Indians who will spend 5 hours a day, right? Daily. There's a massive, there's significant liquidity around the world, right? That combined with the fact that there's been an acceleration of digital driven by COVID, we're seeing obviously, significant funding flowing into startups, not just in fintech, but, pretty much in any kind of startup in every kind of sector. And that will obviously continue over a decade perspective. The only thing I would say is, look, I mean, some of these markets, just in general, right? Like public markets, private markets, they go up, they come down. So at some point there will be a correction. But if you take a 5 to 10 year view, especially in a country like India, this is a massive, massive mega trend, right? So in many ways, this is the next 20 years, Dilip, is going to be India's 2 decades, right? When it comes to digitization, both of consumers, small businesses, as well as corporate. So in many ways, the game is just starting.
So Swapnendu was today morning was talking in one of the sessions that, India will see very less brain drain because the opportunities, and when I say opportunities, not only money standpoint, the whole learning, and we see in our generation, this whole new nation getting built, I'm saying the digital nation getting built. It's a once in a life unique opportunity to next 2 decades to see it building, getting brick by brick together. And today morning, IT minister was talking that while we have been only working on a kind of a services layer, right, as IT, and he was talking about getting the fab manufacturing here, getting the hardware side here. So I think it's going to be, we are actually going to go deeper, and this is where, Rajan, my next question to you, that India is a great fintech market, right? When are we going to be the real tech market, right? And I keep getting these questions by many of my friends who are in the fintech community, that why we don't have our own WhatsApp, why we don't have our own Google and the Facebook, Twitter. So what is your view, Rajan? I'm saying when do you think that we will truly reach towards that stage that we create a WhatsApp amongst us as an Indian company?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Dilip. Look, a lot of people forget that the world's most valuable IT services company is TCS, right? Which is now a 200 billion market cap. TCS's market cap is significantly higher than IBM and Accenture. Okay, we don't talk about that, right? Guess what? TCS is actually a technology company. I think if you look at Freshworks went public, last week, right? Now it's got a market cap of 12 or 13 billion. Dilip, there's no reason why Freshworks won't be a 100 billion market cap company, right, over the next decade. And at 100 billion market cap, you're talking about a very, very significant company that is in the leagues of, the most valuable SaaS companies. And then you come to the next sort of consumer facing companies, right? I think, look, the reality is who's the Google of India? It's Google. But actually, that is not the question, Dilip, right? The question is going to be, who's the Baijus of the world? Most likely it is going to be Baijus, right? You could ask yourself, who could be the Stripe for 3 billion people around the world? That could actually be Razorpay, right? You could say, who could be the consumer payments instrument for 3 or 4 billion people around the world? There's no reason why it can't be a Paytm, right? So I think,
absolutely.
I think this decade and next decade, and actually, what is happening in fact, one of the questions I got from somebody who wanted me to ask you this question was, look, with MDRs being so low in India and MDRs in developed markets being 2, 3, 4%, can Indian payments companies that have now built their businesses on ultra low cost structures, right? And in many ways, next generation infrastructure, can they go out and actually take on global markets? The answer is absolutely yes. In fact, by the way, we are hoping, Dilip, that NPCI.
Yeah.
Great question. I know you're already in a
I wanted to actually get there. I want to get there. Looking at
I mean, look, NPCI a decade from now, should be actually one of the biggest and most important exports that India ever had, right? So I think it's just starting. What we are seeing today in the startup ecosystem, Dilip, in terms of the kind of innovation, like in education, in digital health, in agriculture, like, we have a company, a search company called Log9, right? That is going to try to make, batteries, right? Batteries, for electric
they got
vehicles.
the award, they got the ET award.
Yeah. But, they're going to try to use aluminum. India has a massive excess of aluminum, right? If they do this, they'll be the first company in the world, and they will free the world of today, the one country that has basically a lock on fuel cells. Okay. So I mean, the kind of things we're seeing, in India today is quite extraordinary. So I think, much like we used to ask, where are the unicorns? Then we said, where are the exits? Then we said, where are the $1 billion companies? Then we said, where are the $10 billion companies? I think over the next 5 or 10 years, Dilip, this question of where is the Google of India would have been answered.
I fully agree with you. And today, when we looked at, while we have penetrated in India fairly reasonably to start with, right? Obviously the government, none other than Prime Minister, the RBI governor, deputy, everybody, has an expectation that now that India, whatever public good which has been built by India, can India give this public good to the world, right? And we have formed a subsidiary, NPCI International, and where we are already, our board has agreed that, we can kind of, under the regulator to regulator arrangement or a government to government arrangement, a UPI to 5 to 10 countries, right? So we are already trying to think that as an open source to that particular country, right? Not to allow, not like a typical open source, but under the government to government or regulator arrangement, power that country with UPI, right? The way UPI is powering India. So there is some discussion is in progress, and obviously when we have a larger interest in that, Rajan, that because the moment we take our stack there, India stack there, automatically the companies, fintech startups working on that India stack, automatically they get an opportunity to work in that market. So we are actively discussing with many of the startups, fintechs in India to kind of support the worldwide initiative. Whether it's so now you look at the RBI announced the Singapore India direct remittance. So obviously we are working with again the fintechs which are involved in the cross-border remittance, how they can leverage this story. We are also looking at we are going live in UAE for the UPI cross-border acceptance in December. So we are looking at some of the fintechs to help us in getting the acceptance in UAE. Some of the QR code companies like deploying QRs in India to work with us in the overseas market to get this larger and bigger. So obviously, the NPCI going would mean that, we also carry the fintechs and startup overseas, along with us. And which is where I think what our expectations should be, that, they should serve India very cost efficiently and make money outside. That's what.
Oh, there we go. We are back to the money question. I think, Dilip, we are basically at time. But I think, Dilip, we should make a national mission-moon project to get UPI infrastructure into 100 countries, right? Because I think that would, number one, make the world a better place, but also make those nations much better. And then and that will obviously create a massive number of global Indian payments companies. So I think we're exactly at time. Dilip, I wanted to thank you, and audience. I hope you all were able to get a lot out of our chat with Dilip and myself. Over to you, to the host.
Thank you very much, Rajan. Thank you very much, Dilip. I must admit this turned out to be one of the most buoyant sessions ever. I mean, the kind of questions that kept flowing in as well, and the kind of insights we've managed to gather from you all. So I'd like to thank you all once again for joining us this afternoon. And I'd also like to thank all the delegates who joined us here at the Fest that's been organized by Fintech Convergence Council and Payments Council of India, of Internet and Mobile Association of India, and the National Payments Corporation of India. So with that, I'm going to thank both of our speakers once again, and I'm going to thank all our delegates for joining in. See you all in the next set of sessions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.